She walked past him as if he were invisible, heels clicking against marble floors, eyes locked on every face except his. The only black investor in the room stood waiting, portfolio in hand. While security watched him more closely than the white CEO, who had just cancelled his meeting without a glance. Whispers, stares, quiet laughter burned into his skin. What she saw as disposable. He knew the years of sacrifice. She had no idea that within 24 hours, everything about their power would violently shift. Darius had built his life on numbers and discipline. Early mornings, late nights, quiet apartments lit by the glow of spreadsheets and research. No one had handed him anything. Every contract, every client, every small win had been carved out of spaces where he was usually the only black man in the room. By the time he turned 38, he wasn't just doing okay. He was managing a growing fund, employing people, quietly outperforming firms that once ignored his emails. His success still surprised those who expected him to be grateful just to be invited. If you care about powerful black racism stories and dignity, subscribe so you don't miss the next story. But he learned to swallow that sting and stay focused. This meeting was supposed to be different. A major tech company. A white CEO known for her bold deals. If she signed on, it would unlock a chain of partnerships he'd chased for years. He prepared as if everything depended on it, because in his world, it often did. He rehearsed in his head on the flight. Checked his suit twice. Reread the numbers until they blurred. He knew his proposal was strong. He knew the returns were real. Yet beneath the confidence lived a familiar tension, a quiet question he never voiced. Would he be seen for his work or only for his skin? As the car pulled up to the glittering headquarters, cameras flashed for other guests stepping out of sleek vehicles. The building rose like a monument to power and access. Darius straightened his tie, gathered his portfolio, and stepped into the lobby. He had no idea how quickly this place would remind him of where people like him were still expected to stand. The lobby swallowed him in glass and light. Screens glowed with product launches and smiling faces, the company's logo stamped on every surface like a promise. Behind the welcome desk, staff moved with practiced ease, scanning badges, waving people through. Suits, polished shoes, easy laughter. Darius stepped up with his portfolio, name confirmed, meeting time recited from memory. The receptionist's smile shifted the moment she took in his face. Her eyes flicked down to his suit, to his skin, then back to the screen as if something didn't quite match. She double-checked his name. Then checked it again. Her tone cooled. Her questions multiplied. Other guests breezed past with nothing more than a nod and a name. No extra verification. No raised brows. No delay. Darius watched a younger white man shuffle in behind him, shirt half untucked, no appointment on the books, yet the staff moved quickly to find a way to fit him in. Darius was told to wait. He sat in a corner of the lobby, portfolio resting on his knee, phone in his hand. Every few minutes, someone at the desk glanced over, eyes sliding away. The moment he looked back, a security guard drifted closer, not enough to be obvious, just enough that Darius could feel the weight of being monitored. The room hummed with quiet conversations, but his section stayed strangely empty. People chose seats farther away. A woman clutched her bag a little tighter as she passed. He had seen this choreography before, the way fear and bias reshaped the air around him without a word. Minutes bled past his scheduled meeting time. Then doubled. Then stretched further. His phone buzzed with a calendar update. The meeting is marked as delayed. No explanation. No apology. Just a gray bar sliding to a later time, as if his day, his work, his preparation were infinitely elastic. Upstairs, through a cut of glass, he could see part of a mezzanine. Someone greeted a tall woman with a confident walk and expensive haircut. The white CEO he had researched so carefully. Cameras followed her as she moved through the space with the ease of ownership. Staff clustered around, laughing at something she said, offering documents, ushering her toward a conference room he had imagined himself in. The delay stretched long enough to become an answer. His phone finally lit up again. The meeting status shifted from delayed to cancelled. A short internal note followed. A scheduling conflict. An urgent matter. A promise to reconnect at an undefined later date. He had been pushed off the calendar with a flick of a wrist. As he rose to leave, he passed close to the front desk. He heard the soft, careless tone of someone behind it mention that the CEO preferred to spend her time on real opportunities and not on risky experiments that did nothing for the company's image. No names. No direct mention. But he felt exactly where those words landed. The elevator doors slid open just as he approached the exit. The CEO stepped out, surrounded by assistants and senior staff. He recognized her immediately. She did not look at him. Her gaze skimmed the lobby, locking with peers, sponsors, and familiar faces. She moved past Darius as if he were a shadow on the floor, heels striking the marble, perfume trailing behind her. Security's eyes clung to him, not to her. Humiliation burned, but beneath it something quieter settled in. No surprise. Not shock. Just the heavy, exhausted recognition of a pattern he knew too well. He walked out of the building, the city's noise rushing up to meet him, his carefully prepared pitch still untouched in his hands. He sank into the back seat of his car, ready to swallow the day and file it away with every other bruise that never made the news. Then his phone lit up again. This time, it was a message from a major partner, flagged urgent. The tech company he had just left was facing a crisis, and its board was scrambling for a lifeline. They were looking for a specific kind of investor to stabilize everything. The name at the center of their request was the same woman who had just erased him in her lobby. The word crisis sat heavily in the message, but it was the details that made his chest tighten. Overnight, an internal report had leaked. Complaints from black and brown employees. Stories of being passed over, silenced, pushed out. Screenshots of leadership laughing off concerns about diversity. At the center of it all, the same white CEO who had just erased him with a cancelled meeting and a turned face. The market reacted fast. Stock sliding. Headlines questioning the company's ethics. Major partners threatening to walk away unless something changed, and changed publicly. They didn't just need money. They needed an image, a symbol, a shield. Attached to the email was a forwarded thread. He scrolled through lines written by people who had never met him but knew exactly what they wanted him to be. They called him the perfect narrative. A powerful black investor. A chance to show commitment. A strategic opportunity to repair optics. His returns were mentioned as a bonus, not the reason. They were not reaching for his work. They were reaching for his skin. Within hours, he was back at the same tower of glass and light. This time, there was no waiting. No extra questions. No security hovering at the edges. Staff moved quickly, almost nervously, offering coffee, water, anything he might need. The same eyes that had slid past him now followed him with anxious attention. The boardroom door opened onto a different world. Senior executives lined the table, screens lit with faces dialing in from other cities. At the head sat the CEO, the woman who hadn't spared him a glance in the lobby. Her posture was composed, but the tension in her jaw betrayed the panic beneath the surface. Now, every eye in the room turned to him. He felt the weight of years in that moment. Every cold lobby. Every narrowed gaze. Every time someone like him had been needed only when someone like her was in trouble. Anger rose, but so did something else, the realization that he stood at a doorway not just for himself, but for everyone who would never be invited into this room. For the first time, she had to see him. She needed his name, his reputation, his presence to save what she had built on the backs of people she refused to see. And as the silence stretched, Darius understood that the most powerful thing in that room was not their desperation. It was his decision, and he hadn't made it yet. He let them talk first. Charts flashed on screens, numbers dipping red, reputations unraveling in real time. The CEO's voice was steady but thin, wrapped in corporate language about missteps and perceptions. Behind the words was simple fear: investors leaving, employees speaking out, customers watching. For years, people like her had decided who was worth a seat at the table. Now the same table shook, and the person they needed most was the man who had once been left waiting in their lobby. Darius did not rush. He listened, weighed every word, every subtle attempt to dress up desperation as opportunity. Then, with the quiet certainty of someone who no longer needed to beg for access, he made his choice. If he stepped in, it would not be to polish their image. It would be to change the ground they stood on. His conditions were not about ego. They were about the truth. Real power was given to the employees who had been ignored. Independent oversight with teeth. Transparent reforms. Seats at the table for people who had never been allowed near the room. Resources directed toward black and brown-led initiatives, not just glossy statements. And at the center of it, public accountability from the CEO who had built her success on invisible harm. Either they accepted that fully or they found someone else. The decision was brutal for them, but the math was simple. Survival or collapse. For the first time, her future depended on whether she was willing to step down so others could finally step in. Days later, headlines told a different story: a scandal, a resignation, a rescue led by a black investor who refused to be a prop and demanded structural change instead. Employees who had once suffered in silence watched someone leverage the power they had been denied. Darius walked through that same lobby again, no security shadowing his steps, no receptionist second-guessing his name. The marble hadn't changed. The glass hadn't changed. But something in the story had shifted. Still, the question lingered like a bruise. Why did it take a crisis, a leak, and the threat of collapse for a black man's expertise to be seen as essential and not just convenient? And when you see someone being reduced to a symbol, a threat, or an afterthought in your own world, will you stay silent, or will you finally refuse to look away?